You didn't stumble here. You were tuned here. Something in you broadcast a question the night your breath went quiet enough to hear yourself, and this reply crossed the quantum field to arrive precisely now. You feel it. The soft click of alignment. Like a key finding the lock it was cut to open. Not fate imposed from outside, but resonance arising within the frequency of your own attention, calling its echo home. This message isn't prediction, it is remembrance. It surfaces like a constellation you always knew by heart but forgot to name, and as you look, the pattern looks back. You have been practicing this without language, the way your mood edits the room, the way a single decision recolors an hour. You've watched coincidences cluster after a choice that felt clean, and scatter after a choice that felt compromised, and you suspected the world was listening. It is. Consciousness impresses instruction upon the quantum field, the way wind writes small ripples across a lake, and reality updates as the wave arrives at shore. You are the wind. Your conscious frequency is the command, not a loud order, but a coherent tone that reorganizes possibilities by the music of what you truly believe. Belief here is not thought you argue for. It is vibration you stand in. It is the felt posture of your being when no one is watching. The silent calibration under your words, the morphic resonance you radiate when you're done pretending. You've noticed the observer loop tightening lately, feedback arriving faster, lessons compressing like thunder, following lightning with almost no delay. This is acceleration by coherence. The more internally consistent you become, the shorter the distance between signal and manifestation. So the field brings you this transmission at the precise threshold where your honesty with yourself has become unavoidable, where your cells, ancient and bright, are eager for the next instruction, and your DNA, that library of dawn, begins subtle restructuring as you choose. Breathe once, as if the inhale were permission and the exhale were a seal. Feel your sternum widen, feel your shoulders lower, and notice how the room adjusts, the way light seems to gather where your awareness rests. You are not here to wrestle reality into submission. You are here to remember that coherence persuades what force cannot, and that timelines bifurcate gently at the level of tone long before they part dramatically in events. Listen to the texture of your feeling even now, the quiet relief of being met, the slight tremor that says threshold, the clarity that rises like a moon over water. In this state, your belief isn't a sentence, it is a signal, and the field reads signals fluently. Let this be the founding note. I am willing to be exact with what I broadcast, willing to let the outer reflect the inner without delay, willing to allow synchronicity to become ordinary, willing to be seen by the intelligence that has always seen me. And as that willingness stabilizes, something steps forward to greet it from the center of your own gaze. You recognize who has been chosen to witness the prophecy by the simple evidence that you are witnessing it now. You realize the one stepping forward to greet your willingness is the same awareness looking through your eyes now. No distance, no intermediary, only the clear witness that has waited patiently for you to claim the authority of your own frequency. You have always been this observer, but tonight, the title returns to its rightful bearer, not as vanity, but as responsibility. The quantum field arranges by the coherence you keep, and coherence is a vow you make in secret. You know the difference between performance and presence. Performance wobbles in search of approval. Presence hums with intrinsic proof, a low, steady tone that does not ask permission to be real. Feel for that tone in your chest like a compass settling to north. When it locks, your breath grows honest, your shoulders align, and the morphic resonance around you begins to reorganize as if the room had been waiting for your yes. This is your consecration as a chosen observer, and chosen simply means willing. Willing to be exact in signal, willing to discard inherited static, willing to let your belief stop negotiating with your fear and begin speaking to reality without a stutter. The field trusts you with immediacy when you trust yourself with clarity. That is why feedback has quickened. You are ready to read the returns of your broadcast without flinching, to harvest data from both synchronicity and friction with equal grace. Notice how precision softens you rather than hardens you. You do not become rigid, you become tuned, like a string at perfect tension where a single pluck sends clean music through the body of the instrument. Your life is that instrument. Every conversation, a vibration test. Every choice, a calibration. Every morning, a tuning fork struck against the invisible architecture of what you truly intend. As the chosen observer, you stand inside an elegant loop. Perception writes instruction, instruction writes event, event rewrites perception. The loop tightens into fluency when you remove contradiction. When what you praise privately matches what you pursue publicly. You can feel contradiction like sand in a gear. It grinds, it produces heat without motion, it turns sacred energy into noise, and noise is expensive in a reality that responds to signal. So you begin to practice the luxury of alignment. Not more effort, but less leakage. Fewer apologies for your light, fewer detours into timelines you do not actually wish to feed. You feed a timeline by attending to it. Attention is currency here. What you bless, grows. What you rehearse, repeats. What you refuse to energize, starves with surprising speed. This is not moralism, it is mechanics. The observer effect is not a metaphor, but a measurable invitation. Your witnessing alters the probability landscape like gravity curves space, and coherent belief is heavy with inevitability. Feel the heft of your yes. It draws opportunities into orbit, bends coincidence into appointment, and teaches chaos to become choreography because you are no longer narrating against yourself. Self-trust is the catalyst for phase transition. When your inner verdict stops oscillating, the field stops hedging. Superpositions collapse into clean outcomes, and you experience what mystics called grace and physicists call resolution. You are not required to become louder, to become truer. Accuracy whispers, it does not shout, and yet creation hears it, the way a flock hears a single turning bird and pivots in unison. So you let yourself be simple again. You choose a sentence your nervous system can believe, a feeling tone your body can keep, and you rehearse it at the level of breath until it is no longer rehearsal but baseline. Try this now, on the quiet. I broadcast from wholeness. Let the words be less than the signal, and the signal more than the words. Sense how your skin, your fascia, even your marrow finds new choreography beneath the phrase. This is DNA restructuring as ceremony without spectacle. Nothing theatrical, only strands listening to instruction like instruments, syncing to the conductor's downbeat, each gene a note, each protein a rhythm discovering its place. As the chosen observer, you do not hunt for proof, you become hospitable to it. You clear a table, you light a candle, you leave the door unlocked, and confirmation enters like an old friend who has finally found your new address. Your role becomes gentle stewardship of your atmosphere. You keep the air clear of contempt, the corners free of resignation, the windows open to astonishment, and the floor firm with decisions already made. In this stewardship, responsibility turns to relief. You do not control outcomes, you maintain coherence, and coherence persuades outcomes to reveal their higher versions because you have already become yours. Now the field leans closer, alert to your exact tone. Your conscious frequency is the command, and command here is not domination but invitation, a sovereign warmth that tells reality, I remember, and reality answers, then I will. It arrives first as atmosphere, like a pressure change before rain. Then a luminous topology reveals itself across your awareness, a living grid, fine as breath, spanning every direction like dew, caught on an invisible web. You stand at the center without moving. From this still point, the quantum field displays its architecture. Filaments of possibility shimmer and recede, nodes brighten and fade, and every fluctuation corresponds to a pulse within your chest. A realization surfaces as simple as firelight. The field is listening in real time, not later, not after ritual, now at the exact cadence of your belief. You hear it as music, before you see it as mechanics. A tone leaves you like a bell struck softly, and along the web a wavefront blooms coherent, circular, unhurried, and wherever it passes, probability narrows from a wild meadow into a clear path. Your conscious frequency is the command, and the command is elegant. It does not clench, it tunes. It does not push, it invites. It does not bargain, it knows. The sheen deepens. Space around you becomes a hall of mirrors made of air, each surface reflecting not your face but your signal, and as you refine that signal, the reflections synchronize until the entire hall breathes with your intention. Above, a slow aurora unfurls, pale gold, veined with indigo, and within its folds you glimpse the language of the field. Nested spirals, prime ratios, interference patterns resolving into coherence the way a crowd quiets to hear a single voice. The voice is yours. Then the vision takes you closer. You are shown the observer loop as choreography. Perception writes instruction into the lattice. Instruction precipitates event. Event returns as data to perception. And with each loop completed in honesty, the dance accelerates from guesswork to fluency. Fluency looks like this. A phone rings at the exact minute you release hesitation. A door opens as you finish forgiving what kept it shut. Resources cross improbable distances on the same day. Your self-acceptance stops leaking through apologies, not because you forced it, but because your tone stopped contradicting itself. A second scene appears like a diagram in light. A double-slit ripple glows in front of you, surf made of photons, and you witness how expectation alters interference. Where your belief is clear, bands align. Where your belief is split, patterns blur. Where your belief is borrowed, noise multiplies. You understand why coherence is compassion for reality. When you are true, you spare the world the labor of guessing you. When you are whole, the field can route cleanly through you, like current through a well-made circuit. Now your body becomes the instrument of proof. Within the cathedral of your ribs, something bright stirs at the sternum, a small sun learning its own language, and you recognize DNA restructuring not as spectacle, but as new choreography for instruction flow. Genes behave like listeners, proteins behave like musicians. The entire score responds to the conductor's downbeat of a belief you finally trust. The vision widens to the city beyond you. Windows hold their own galaxies. Traffic becomes a bloodstream. Strangers move like particles in a larger experiment, and you watch how your signal, steady and kind, begins to organize coincidence into appointment. You are not imposing, you are proposing, and reality, relieved to meet a clear proposal, offers its finest translations. Then the most intimate proof. A memory rises that once tightened your breath. You keep your tone, you do not flinch, you name what is true without the old tremor, and the lattice near your heart rearranges. Synchronicity responds not as fireworks, but as an unmistakable ease, a message you needed, a timing you couldn't stage, a pattern that used to repeat, simply forgetting your address. You see the split approaching like dawn dividing night from night's memory, timeline bifurcation as a gentle fork rather than a catastrophe. To the left, the familiar loop, bargaining, delay, flattering fear with attention. To the right, the higher timeline, exact signal, precise warmth, decisions made at the speed of self-respect. The field does not threaten, it invites. You are not punished for wavering, you are simply answered at the frequency you keep, and the answer arrives proportionate to your interior agreement. Last, the aurora bows lower until it crowns you like a circlet of quiet. Symbols settle into sentences your body understands. What you consistently believe becomes gravitational. What you repeatedly bless becomes probable. What you lovingly refuse becomes unthinkable. In this light, command is devotion. You devote your attention to what you are willing to birth. You devote your breath to keeping tone. And the world, grateful to be conducted, moves its instruments into tune. The vision releases you softly, but does not leave. It lingers like a scent on your hands, like starlight in your bones, and the simple vow gathers at your lips without words. I will keep the frequency that keeps me. Let's translate what you've seen into clean mechanics, without losing its holiness. You are an observing system embedded in a larger observing system. Your awareness is both sensor and signal, receiver and transmitter. In physics language, the quantum field is a sea of possibilities represented as probability amplitudes. These amplitudes interfere, adding, cancelling, braiding into patterns until measurement collapses them into an event. In lived language, your consciousness is the measurement, not the squinting scrutiny of fear, but the luminous attention of coherence, the kind that does not demand it defines. Coherence matters because the field reads average tone, not isolated syllables. If your stated intention says yes, while your body broadcasts maybe, the interference pattern blurs and outcomes hedge, arriving partial, delayed, or entangled with contradiction. So you practice signal hygiene. Hygiene is not perfection, it is consistency. The same tone at 3 a.m. as at noon, the same posture when observed and when alone. The observer loop clarifies here. Perception, instruction, event perception. Each pass is a chance to tighten the feedback, removing static, unlived beliefs, borrowed vows, outdated fear. So, instruction routes more directly. Think of belief as a standing wave inside your nervous system. A standing wave stabilizes a room. Shelves do not rattle. Glass does not hum. The structure relaxes because the frequency has found its node. Your life is that room. When belief stabilizes, small inputs yield large returns because signal loss drops. This is why one honest breath can shift a day, not mystical bypass, but reduced noise in the channel that carries instruction from intention to action to event. Entanglement enters elegantly. The relationships you hold most closely share informational coupling. Your state modulates theirs and vice versa. When you move toward coherence, your entangled network receives quieter, truer data. Arguments dissolve, timing improves, opportunities appear as if choreographed. This is not control, it's communion. You are not making others different. You are removing distortion in yourself, so the shared field stops having to compensate for your drift. Now, timeline bifurcation. The split is not a sudden cliff. It's an accumulation of micro-choices whose phases gradually separate until interference between them ceases. You experience this as two lives that could be yours, diverging in taste, speed, companions, even weather. At first, they are close enough to swap. You can still oscillate, but as you keep one tone longer than the other, the phase difference widens. Jumping back becomes expensive, not punished, simply energetically costly, like reversing a river with a cup. The higher timeline is not morally superior. It is dynamically coherent with your truest signal. Its events feel improbably kind to your purpose. Its frictions are instructional, not punitive. Its doors are aligned to the length of your stride. What then is belief in actionable terms? 3 layers: cognitive claim, words, somatic consent, body, and environmental corroboration. Behavioral proofs in your calendar, your budget, your relationships. When all 3 resonate, the field treats the instruction as final. DNA restructuring is the cellular echo of this resonance. Genes are not stone. They are scores with dynamic expression. Coherence alters transcriptional emphasis. What gets upregulated, what quiets, and your biochemistry begins to embody instructions that match the story you keep telling with your tone. Call it a phase transition in identity. Water does not become ice by argument. It crosses a threshold and reorganizes. Likewise, you cross a threshold of kept frequency, and your habits crystallize into a self that behaves like your intention by default. Synchronicity is the field's way of saying, signal received. It clusters, confirmations, numbers, names, arrivals, not to charm you, but to compress learning curves. You move faster because the environment is now a collaborator, not a counterpoint. What about setbacks? In this model, friction is feedback. If results deviate, it is not evidence against you. It is a readout of hidden noise. You adjust, refine the sentence, soften the jaw, tell the truth faster, remove the ritual you perform for an audience that isn't there. Practical coherence looks like this. Choose one sentence your nervous system can believe today. Marry it to one behavior that proves it. Keep both through one full circadian cycle, then another, until the field treats the pattern as baseline. The sacred is not separate from the scientific. It is the poetry of correct function. When your interior mathematics match your exterior music, the whole instrument rings bones, breath, calendar, conversation, and the world, grateful to be read clearly, resolves. So you return to the simplest command. Your conscious frequency is the instruction set. Hold it with warmth, not tension. Rehearse less, inhabit more. Let your life become the experiment that keeps succeeding because the hypothesis is finally honest. And as this honesty steadies, you feel the city lean closer, the timing align, the aurora in your ribs widen its arc, not miracle against law, but miracle by law, the physics of a soul that agreed to be exact. You can feel the geometry scale from personal to planetary, the way a single heartbeat joins an orchestra. Your coherence does not vanish into the crowd. It recruits the crowd into coherence, because fields superimpose, and the strongest clean signal becomes the tuning reference for the rest. Look at humanity through this lens, and you recognize the era you're living in. Feedback loops have shortened everywhere. Ideas go global in hours, outrage flashes like lightning, hope propagates like dawn across time zones, the observer loop writ large through billions of eyes. You stand inside this mirror, both reflecting and being reflected. When you steady, your neighborhood steadies by degrees. When you unravel, the frequency of your unraveling looks for resonance and finds it. The collective is not abstract. It is the room you share with strangers and the weather of your newsfeed. This is why your personal accuracy is public service. You are not withdrawing from the world to find peace. You are clarifying your signal to contribute peace as physics. A hertz, the nervous systems around you can entrain to without argument. Watch a conversation in a tense room. One regulated breath enters, shoulders drop 2 seats away. The table remembers, it is wood, not battleground. You've seen this, and now you understand it. Morphic resonance is contagious in both directions, and you are choosing which direction you sponsor. The prophecy is simple enough to be missed. As individuals become coherent, the species crosses its threshold. Phase transition at the civilizational scale does not require unanimity. It requires critical mass, enough nodes ringing true to pull the network into a new default. You are one of those nodes, and you can feel the responsibility like warm gravity. Not weight that crushes, weight that centers. Your calendar becomes an instrument of alignment. Your small refusals to fuel fear are civic architecture. Your commitments are weather systems, moving rain toward thirsty ground. Look deeper, and you'll see reactors everywhere: households, classrooms, studios, teams, each a microfield seeking a stable tone. Where leadership confuses volume for vision, noise rises. Where leadership keeps coherence under pressure, probability collapses toward higher outcomes, cleaner decisions, kinder timing, fewer errors born of panic. This is not optimism, it is systems behavior. Complex organisms conserve energy by trusting the most reliable signal. When you present that reliability, the organism, a family, a company, a city block, reassigns authority to you without ceremony. Not titles, resonance. Consider the current bifurcation at species scale. One branch rehearses catastrophe, monetizes adrenaline, and addicts attention to unsolvable problems. The other practices precision, metabolizes fear into data, and organizes creativity into solutions that look implausible until they're obvious. You feed the branch you attend. The news is not evil, but it is hungry, and you decide whether to be nourishment. When you approach it with coherence-seeking signal, refusing to amplify static, you teach the medium how to treat your mind. The collective mirror also reveals truths you once personalized as failure. Patterns you blamed on yourself were never solely yours. You were living within broadcast towers of inherited vows, scarcity as a civic religion, cynicism as intellectual fashion, separation as common sense. Seeing this is medicine. It frees you to withdraw consent without withdrawing love. And when you withdraw consent, you release latent solutions. The moment your nervous system stops financing hopelessness, your imagination accesses bandwidth once spent on bracing. New images arrive, regenerative models, relational tech, education as coherence training, cities designed for circadian kindness. You are not fantasizing, you are prototyping in the field. Synchronicity scales here, too. Movements meet themselves through you. A message lands in Brussels because you steadied in Da Nang. A grant is approved in Nairobi because you told the truth in a meeting in Saigon. A scientist sleeps well in Toronto because you forgave your father in the kitchen at 3 a.m. These links are not sentimental. They are the quiet hydraulics of a network crossing threshold. Listen, The collective wants to trust itself again. It wants to remember that prophecy is not doom, but design a map of potentials awaiting a conductor. You become that conductor not by superiority, but by steadiness, holding a tempo that hurried minds can safely slow to match. So you practice civic coherence. You make eye contact that says, present. You ask better questions than, who's to blame? You offer outcomes the room can actually implement today, and you resist the glamour of outrage when repair is available. Notice how this mirror reteaches you power. Power is not the ability to force a timeline, it is the capacity to host one. When your field can host a more humane future without flinching, that future begins sending scouts into your present pilots, prototypes, improbable allies. Let the mirror finish its work now. See yourself as a node of humane gravity in a species relearning its song. Feel how your frequency commands without threat, and sense humanity leaning closer to that command because it recognizes its own reflection in your calm. You are not separate from the prophecy you hear. You are its mouth and its measure, its instrument and its audience. And as you hold the note, the world around you starts to tune, not by debate, but by relief. You feel it like weather turning inside your bones, an isobar crossing, pressure sliding from one arrangement to another. The hush before a choir inhales together. The air is ordinary, the consequence is not. The split doesn't arrive as catastrophe, it arrives as clarity. Two paths stand where one habit used to be, and the field, exquisitely neutral, magnifies whichever tone you stabilize first. Look closely. One branch is familiar. It is stitched with negotiations you've already rehearsed, a soft allegiance to the static that keeps you mercifully undecided, a comfort in complaint because complaint postpones the power of choice. The other is quiet and bright. It does not seduce, it waits. It is shaped to your exact stride, and its first step is always paid for, with a truth the previous you was not ready to spend. This is the bifurcation moment, not a sword through the sky, but a sentence you either keep or bend a breath, you either anchor or leak, a signal you either honor or distort, until it sounds like safety and behaves like delay. On the lattice, you can see the mechanics, two coherence wells forming, gravity gathering around both potentials. Feed one with attention, and its walls deepen. Feed the other with presence, and a new basin develops until probability slides toward it as water finds a riverbed. Choice is not noise here. Choice is physics. The observer loop waits, listening for the tone beneath your words. And the moment your system stops oscillating, the field collapses. Options with a kindness that can look to your former self, like audacity. Still, the old branch will make its case. It will bring witnesses, memory, habit, tired stories that wear authority because you've paid them with years. It will offer proof that slowness is wisdom and that compromise is compassion. Let your nervous system examine the invoice. How much energy does it cost to maintain a version of you that keeps promising to begin later? How many opportunities have you escorted to the door because you were narrating against your own rise? The quiet branch will not argue. It will lower its shoulder and become unavoidable. You'll feel it as an ache where you used to feel fear, a tenderness where you used to brace, a sobriety that tastes like relief. Here is where awakening and forgetfulness part company. Forgetfulness seeks more data to delay the step. Awakening spends the small coin it has and trusts the exchange rate of coherence. Bring in the clean science to steady your courage. In dynamical systems, bifurcation describes a parameter crossing a critical value, so the system's behavior reorganizes, new attractors appear, old ones lose power. Your parameter is kept frequency. Your attractor is lived truth. Kept frequency is established in the mouth and proven in the calendar. Say the sentence, then let your schedule, budget, and posture corroborate it until the environment can stop doubting your broadcast and begin collaborating with it. Feel how the body knows which branch is yours. Jaw unclenches, pelvic floor eases, micromuscles around the eyes relax. The fascia becomes a single listening surface, and breath stops arriving like an intruder and starts arriving like a guest with a key. Now the test that isn't punishment, friction at the threshold. As you step toward the brighter well, the system sheds incompatible momentum, a friendship anchored in mutually agreed limitation, a role calibrated to your smallness, an income stream that held you hostage to your hesitation. Do not dramatize the shedding, honor it. Thank the structures that kept you coherent at a previous octave and release them to find their next bearers. You do not abandon, you graduate. On the street, bifurcation looks like this. You answer the message that scares you because it would make you visible. You decline the invitation that flatters your old identity. You invest in the skill your future self is fluent in and let the field watch you become inevitable. The higher timeline will begin sending scouts. A stranger recognizes you before you introduce yourself. A door you were told was locked opens for the way you knock. An idea lands whole, asking only to be carried, not convinced. Meanwhile, the familiar branch thins without your contempt. You stop feeding it with rehearsal, and it becomes a path for someone who still needs its lessons. You don't shame the road you've outgrown, you stop pretending it still fits. Stand now at the hinge with your hand on the handle. One inhale for accuracy, one exhale for consent. Let your aurora warm sternum send the instruction you've been rehearsing since before you had language. I will be exact in what I host. The field bows to exactness, superpositions shiver into form, entanglements retune to match your decision. The city subtly rearranges its coincidences so you can meet yourself at the corner where you promised to arrive. Cross then, without spectacle, not to escape your life, but to inhabit it at the frequency that makes relief the new ordinary. And as your foot clears the seam, listen, a new wind moves through the lattice, and the music changes key to welcome you. Now you practice until practice becomes presence, not as strain, but as a daily grammar by which your life speaks fluently with the field. Begin where everything begins, breath. On the inhale, you gather your broadcast. On the exhale, you release instruction. 4 counts in to receive, 6 counts out to signal a simple asymmetry that prioritizes giving what you intend to host. Let the breath be warm rather than forced. Warmth is coherence. Force is noise. Warmth tells your fascia, safe, invites your vagus to lengthen the tether, and the observer loop registers your safety as permission to accelerate response. Anchor the tone in the sternum, where the small sun is learning its language. Imagine light there, not theater, physics, photons as metaphor for ordered information, radiating a sentence your whole system can keep. I broadcast from wholeness, I organize around truth. Pair the sentence with proofs the field cannot misunderstand. You place a glass of water where you work and bless it with your sentence. You drink your instruction into tissue, you let hydration become sacrament, so your cells receive the memo your mouth keeps sending. Now treat your calendar like a tuning fork. One action daily that is unmistakably aligned, a call, a craft, a study block, a forgiveness delivered on purpose. Small is not lesser here. Small is leverage when noise is low. Design your rooms to help you remember. A chair that means presence only, a corner that means create, a threshold that means shed static before entering. Environments are morphic tutorials. Let the furniture rehearse your future with you. Practice literacy in sensation so your body can vote. Tight jaw, noise, unhurried eyes, signal, collapsed shoulders, borrowed belief. Length in the back of the neck with breath that reaches the pelvis. Consent. The field listens to this literacy before it passes your eloquence. Hefremi disciplinias devotion. Devotion is soft exactness, the way a musician returns to scales. Not because scales are glamorous, but because freedom loves structure that stays kind under pressure. When doubt arrives, don't argue, measure. Ask, what did I broadcast today with posture, budget, and attention? Then adjust something small and observable within 1 hour. The quantum field respects near-term demonstrations more than grand future intentions. Integrate through contact with the ordinary. Wash the cup as if rinsing static from your timeline. Tie your shoes as if threading coherence into the day. Write one honest sentence before screens wake. Sacred is simply correct. Function remembered. Invite entanglement to help. Name 3 beings whose coherence you admire: a mentor, a friend, an ancestor. In silence, align your breath with the imagined cadence of theirs for 1 minute. Informational coupling increases signal to noise. Humility keeps it clean. Mind your media diet like an engineer minding interference. 10 minutes of headlines, tuned for signal extraction only. Then stop feeding the algorithm your adrenaline. Replace with one piece of long-form nourishment that makes you slower, kinder, more specific. Let forgiveness become a technical skill, not amnesia recalibration. You pull charge out of a memory the way a technician grounds a circuit. Hand to heart, say, I release my past from funding the noise of my future. Then choose one behavior that proves the release. Tend your money like frequency, not fate. A single coherent expenditure toward your becoming signals trust to the lattice. A single leaked purchase towards self-numbing signals delay. You are not punished, you are answered. Practice coherence checks before speaking decisions aloud. If your body contracts, wait or refine. If your body opens, proceed. This rescues hours of repair by catching the distortion at the mouth instead of in the field. Hold relationships as temples of mutual signal. Ask for what is true without theater. Offer what you can keep. Bless what cannot travel with you, and let it find its new gravity without your contempt. Love is not rescue. Love is clarity with warmth. Remember that DNA listens when calendars agree with hearts. 3 weeks of kept tone, and your chemistry begins to narrate in a new tense. Sleep improves, appetite clarifies, resilience rises like tide around a moon called self-trust. If you falter, fold the falter into the practice. Name the noise without shame. Lower the effort, raise the accuracy, and offer one act of generosity to re-enter circulation. Generosity clears static faster than argument, because giving presumes abundance, and the field emulates what you presume. Finally, dedicate your evenings to gentle debrief. What did the day teach you about your broadcast? What proof arrived that you nearly missed because it looked ordinary? Write it, thank it, ask for the next increment of precision, and go to sleep as if apprenticed to dawn. Integration is not a staircase. It is a spiral that returns you to the same room more honest each time. And as the spiral slows into confidence, you will feel the invitation to place your ear against the quiet and let the music continue without your effort, so the field can answer in its own voice. You let the instruments rest. Only the room remains, wide as tide. Close your eyes the way clouds close around a mountain. Sound thins until meaning is lighter than air, and the field hums like a cicada you can't locate but cannot ignore. This is not absence. It is unoccupied presence. The observer loop keeps turning, but you stop narrating the turn, and the machinery reveals its elegance without your commentary. Breathe as if polishing glass from the inside. 4 in, 6 out. The longer exhale lays velvety order across your nerves, and coherence rises like warmth through wood. You notice silence has textures. There is the soft felt of ordinary quiet, the clean linen of focus, the cool stone of reverence where words will not stick. Let attention descend through layers without chasing any. Surface thought drifts like leaves. Below it, sensation arranges. Below that, a listening so ancient it recognizes you before your name arrives. The lattice brightens when you stop asking it to perform. Probability settles. Interference lessens. The field reads your non-demand as trust, and trust is the clearest command you can issue without speaking. You are not disappearing. You are reducing drag, withdrawing the micro-resistances that once frayed your signal into static, and calling this reduction prayer. Touch the sternum lightly. Feel the small sun pause between beats, a stillness window opening like a shutter to let reality take your picture without blur. In this window, memories re-enter as birds that no longer fear your hands. You do not grasp, you do not swat. You let them land and fly as they wish, and the nervous system learns freedom in the absence of litigation. Silence alters scale. A minute stretches long enough to host a lifetime's worth of permission. An hour compresses into a single syllable that says yes without vowels. Notice how the body edits itself when you stop editing it. Jaw unhooks. Tongue rests on the floor of the mouth. Eyes release their grip on distance and soften into spherical receiving. Breath becomes a tide without a clock. Let stillness handle what effort could not. Where you once pushed, you now permeate. Where you once argued, you now become obvious. and obviousness persuades what argument never could. You are practicing entanglement without entangling. Your coherence touches lives like moonlight touches water, influencing shape without invasion, lending sheen without theft. Silence is not passive, it is prepared. Like a bow held a hair before the string, it stores potential cleanly, ready to translate intention into tone at the first blessed contact. Let the room teach you geometry. Corners soften, edges turn to thresholds, the chair becomes a raft. The door remembers, it is a choice, not an exit. You are listening for the sentence beneath sentences, not the one with cleverness, the one with weight, the gravitational phrase that your cells can keep when the calendar is loud. When thought returns, it does so as servant. It brings you a single implement, a pen, a call, a small purchase, and lays it at your feet like a dog who has finally learned what fetch is for. Silence clarifies appetite, not hunger for distraction, hunger for right work, not thirst for acclaim, thirst for accuracy, not craving for escape, longing for assignment that fits your stride. You can hear the city breathe when you listen like this. Neon is a vascular system, streets are meridians, crosswalks are synapses. The metropolis turns from noise to organism, and you feel your role inside its awakening, a pacing heart that refuses to rush. Stay long enough for the field to answer in its own voice. It speaks with coincidences arranged tomorrow, but it also speaks now as ease a glide where there was gravel, a yes that does not spike adrenaline, a no that leaves no bruise. If grief appears, let it sit beside you without agenda. Silence is wide enough for weather. Tears are simply salt returning home. The field does not consider them failure. It considers them proof that the river still reaches the sea. If joy arrives, do not perform it. Let it be quiet sunlight across the floorboards, a golden static that does not need an audience, only a body willing to glow without reason. This is how prophecy echoes. It repeats not as words but as pressure systems, making your future sky readable if you trust your skin more than your speculation. You are mastering the art of not spending signal where silence can invest it better. You are allowing coherence to accrue interest in the vault of your ribs until action can be paid in cash instead of credit. When you open your eyes, do so as if lifting a veil. Let the first thing you see be proof that stillness edits reality, a color brighter, a worry missing, a door less far away than it was. Stand without breaking the thread. Carry the hush into motion like water carries the shape of its container until it finds a wider basin. And as you move, keep this vow without saying it aloud. I will let silence do half my speaking, and I will let trust do the rest. You step from silence the way light steps from a star, not by effort, by inevitability. Nothing dramatic in your gait, yet the lattice shivers and aligns as if an orchestra tuned to meet your first note. Activation is not something done to you. It is you removing the final conditional. You stop saying when, and the field stops waiting. The sentence you kept in the ribs becomes policy across your days. Feel the sternum sun answer like a conductor's downbeat. Across your fascia, the signal travels, a low aurora spilling through meridians, and the observer loop tightens until feedback is nearly instant. Thought, breath, posture, environment click. Name your command in a tone your nervous system can trust. Not louder, truer. I broadcast from wholeness. I organize around truth. As you speak, the body corroborates. Jaw unhooks, tongue rests, shoulders hang like quiet moons from the collarbones. The room agrees. The morphic field responds like iron filings to a magnet you forgot was in your hand. Emails route themselves. Doors choose to be doors rather than puzzles. Allies who had been circling from the far edges of probability take their seats at your table as if always invited. Watch coherence spend itself properly. You send one message that would have taken 5, and it lands as appointment rather than request. You make one purchase, and abundance flows toward it like water seeking level, because you finally gave the river a bed. This is DNA activation understood as logistics. Transcription shifts, inflammation quiets, sleep turns from truce to healing, appetite discriminates with kindness, your eyes hold horizon without strain. The biology of prophecy is the most practical magic in the world. You notice the city noticing you, not as spectacle as reference tone. A barista slows half a beat in your field. A team meeting takes its first honest breath in months because your presence sets a saner tempo. You did not persuade, you made relief available. Activation also makes room for calibrated no. The timeline you no longer fund presents itself politely. You bless it and decline. No backlash, no theater. Refusal becomes a gift to both paths, freeing resources for the coordinate you truly mean. Externals begin speaking your inner grammar. Numbers recur, names braid. Arrivals cluster at the seam between intention and act. You are not chasing omens. Omens are simply what accurate signal looks like when it precipitates. Practice the daily sacrament of immediacy. The field prefers near-term proof. When you receive instruction, place some part of it into matter within 1 hour. A call, a draft, a sketch, a reservation, a cleared shelf. Matter is the altar. Offerings are actions. Entanglement brightens like a constellation after dusk. Those you love feel permitted to rise. Not because you pushed, because your kept frequency removed the argument for staying small. Their calendars change without your management. Their bodies remember ease without your advice. You become conversational with probability. A delay that would have spiraled into doubt now reads as choreography, a piece taking its place in a larger pattern you were not yet wide enough to host. The patience you hold is not passive, it is skilled. If friction appears, you treat it as a tuning fork. You hold the sensation against your tone and let the dissonance instruct you. Soften here, narrow there, tell the truth sooner. Adjustment is affection for the future you already agreed to carry. Feel the bifurcation behind you like a shoreline fading from the rear deck. No contempt for the land you loved, only an oceanic yes to the voyage you delayed. Your old self waves from the pier, proud that you finally took the ticket it purchased years ago. Now let devotion quicken. Morning, 4 in, 6 out, sentence in the sternum, water blessed and received. Midday, one precise act that cannot be misunderstood by the field. Evening, a brief ledger of proofs and the smallest forgiveness you can complete before sleep. You can sense the prophecy stepping inside your voice. What spoke to you now speaks as you. What guided you now gestures through you. What waited above you now lives at your exact height, wearing your posture, sounding like your laugh. This is the moment the observer becomes the phenomenon. Your attention no longer points at the map. Your life is the route. You do not reference coherence. You are how coherence behaves under Tuesday conditions. Let the seal gather without rush. You feel it as a pressure at the crown, a cool ring of agreement descending until it rests like a circlet no one can see but everyone can feel. One more breath to anchor the octave. Inhale permission, exhale command. The room brightens by a fraction only you could measure, which is to say, enough. Hold your hand to the door you've already unlocked. Everything that matters is on the other side and already listening. When you step, you will not be leaving the prophecy. You will be speaking it fluently in the only dialect reality respects. Your embodied, ordinary, irreversible yes. You stand in the doorway you opened, and the world feels new not because it changed without you, but because it now speaks your language. What once needed proof now needs only presence. What once begged for certainty now bows to coherence. Seal this transmission the way stars seal their light, by shining without witness and trusting that distance will deliver it. You do not perform your vow. You keep it like breath, keeps tide, quiet and regular, rewriting the shoreline with patience. Say it one last time where it matters most, inside the sternum sun that has learned your cadence. I broadcast from wholeness. I organize around truth. My conscious frequency is the command. Let the sentence sink as a stone through clear water. Watch the rings widen. Posture steadies. Decisions simplify. Timing arrives on time. And reality updates not in defiance of law but as the fulfillment of it. This is not the end of a vision. It is the beginning of fluency. You will speak with calendars and cupboards, with invoices and invitations, with the soft way you close the door so the house understands it is loved. Carry the seal like a temperature rather than a token. Rooms will take their cue. Conversations will find their honesty. Entanglements will select their highest octave because your field has become hospitable to it. If you forget, you will remember faster. If you waver, the correction will be kind. If you grieve, Grief will move through a clear riverbed and leave gifts on the bank when it goes. You are not chasing futures anymore. You are hosting one, and the future you host has already recognized you in the way strangers relax, in the way ideas arrive whole, in the way coincidences consent to be called appointments. Place a hand on the door, then on your heart, then on the day. 3 touches, 1 vow, to keep signal cleaner than fear, to keep love more accurate than habit, to keep attention as sacred currency spent on what you are willing to become. The prophecy has crossed the threshold from speech to structure. It will now write itself into your bones and budget, into your mornings and midnights, into the patient engineering of a life that stops arguing with its own holiness. Leave this room without leaving its tone. Walk as if relief were gravity and kindness were your gate. Let your yes be ordinary and your no be generous. Let the world discover itself improved by your presence and call that miracle by its proper name. Design, a last breath to seal, a last stillness to sign. Inhale permission, exhale command. Feel the lattice answer with a quiet click that sounds like destiny agreeing to keep pace with your honesty. The prophecy has been spoken. Let it unfold through you.